Okay, welcome back to the Recovery Tapes, episode number 26. My name's Gary and I'm your host. And if you have gained any help from this podcast or you know anyone in recovery who could gain any help from this podcast, please make sure that you give us a follow at the Recovery Tapes across all social platforms, including YouTube this year. So there is a YouTube channel. And today's guest, he's not just your everyday person. We've gone international for this. So he's been through the ringer, this guy. We've heard a little bit of a backstory from him, and he's not an Australian either. So I've got a bit of a special episode for everyone, which will sort of pique your interest and hear a bit of a different story. So can you please introduce yourself to everybody and tell us how old you are and where you're actually from, mate?
Yeah, my name's Cliff Duff from the U.S. Columbus, Ohio is where I originally was born, but now I'm just outside of Columbus, in Lancaster. Was born in Atlanta, but somehow ended up here is where my mom's family was. So this is where I call home, home of the Buckeyes.
I wanted to ask you about football because I seen on your page that you're a pretty big football fan. And in Australia, we have Australian football and then we have rugby and stuff. So let's just go straight into some easy chat, man. What does football mean to you guys over there?
So, I mean, football, it's a little different for everybody, I think, right? Perception, but for me, it relates back to my little league coaches, right? Like I remember all the things that they used to do for me, and I'm a firm believer in the power of sports. So for me, college football is really my thing. I don't get into like the professional leagues and all those different things, but there's just something about seeing those kids go out at the collegiate level and compete and fight for their dreams. And that's kind of what I'm doing in my recovery is, fighting for the life I deserve. And that's just how I relate it. It's huge to me, man. It's like a ritual. Every Saturday when football season's on in college, better believe I'm going to be there.
Fuck yeah. That's something that's a lot of us can relate to in Australia as well. You know, every Saturday as well for us, we sit down and we can watch the rugby or we watch the AFL. And it's basically just an hour where you can turn your brain off from anything that's going on and just enjoy some sports, relax, and sort of just connect with something human. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, for that 60 minutes, it's just about what's going on, kind of get you outside yourself, and it hasn't always been that way with the football games, man. It's bittersweet for me because, that used to be a reason to drink for myself. The Buckeyes won, the Buckeyes lost, they were playing, they weren't playing. And now I can sit back sober and watch game and what I believe to truly be the enjoyment of the game. So it's a real blessing.
Yeah, man, 100%. So just to let some people know, so whereabouts are you actually? Are you like in the middle of America? Are you like at the top or are you Canada or whereabouts actually is the place that you just said,
So
man?
I'm Eastern Standard Time. I fall just on the east side of the line. I would be more East Coast, so to speak. If you split the US up into three, I would be far to the right. I'm right below the Great Lakes, Michigan, really close to Canada. If you go north, I don't know, about 6 hours maybe. It's, you can go to Niagara Falls up in New York. So I'm
Okay, yeah.
really close to Canada.
I think the power of us living in 2026, Cliff, I think it's pretty fucking cool that me being in Australia, in Perth, like right at the bottom of the globe, I'm able to sit here and talk to you so easily just with headphones and microphones on, man. I think this is pretty fucking cool, like.
Yeah, I agree. I just, you asked me to come on and I just took it as a huge honor to be able to reach people across seas, and share some experience, strength, and hope is just it's amazing with the technology, and we can save more people like that. So I'm all about it.
Yeah, man. Michael didn't hold back when he sent me a message, sobriety grind, like obviously with the lives and everything that you guys do. He's got a really, really powerful message and he's pushing something that is helping a lot of people in his part of the world, but it's also spreading down to you guys. And then also as well, there's quite a few Australian guys that actually do watch it as well, man. So that's fucking cool. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no. So Mike is a big inspiration for what I'm doing. With the Rise and Recover Now brand on TikTok, and I'm across all platforms as well. But Mike was a big reason that I got into it, and that was part of it was the fact that I seen, we got people from England, from Australia, all different corners of the U.S. We have people that come in sometimes, whether it be on his sobriety grind platform or my Rise and Recover Now platform, that can barely speak English, but you can just hear how thankful they are that they were able to hear something and gather something. The power of unity is without parallel. I truly believe, we can do this together. It doesn't matter what state we're from, what nation we're from. If we have a common goal and a interest in getting sober, we can 100% work together. And Mike, I owe a lot to Mike, just to be honest about it, because it's always something that I've wanted to do, but his support really pushed me out of my shell to be able to start to reach out and reach these people. And it's a bonus because I'm helping myself along the way. Some of the messages I get, they bring me to tears. When I started this, I said, if I can just help one person, it's worth it. Well, I've done met that goal, and everything now is a bonus. So it's amazing.
I love your platform, man. I check into your page, Rise and Recover Now, for everybody that does want to get around this man on TikTok. Definitely doesn't hold back. Some of the videos you do in your car. I was just watching the one of the poem that you wrote for your 18 months clean, man. So is that still around roughly your time of being clean, or have you gone to another milestone from there?
Yeah, so that was just a couple weeks ago on the 9th, January 9th. I celebrated 18 months of continuous recovery. My years of addiction go back, 18 years, and I just never could get it right. I've had to do geographical change, which that don't solve the issue, but it does help. It helped me immensely. In the past 3.5 years, going on, yeah, three, or no, I'm closer to four, or just a couple months shy of 4 years of where I've been at now. I've had two splits, and for me, for this addict, that's huge. I kept fighting, I kept getting back up, I kept obtaining information. I just wasn't always applying it right, and I had to get out of my own way to finally be successful. This 18 months is there was a period in time when I fell 9 days short of 3 years, but this 18 months just has a whole different vibe. It has a whole different feel. It has a whole different security with it. And, there's a lot of things that I do, TikTok and Facebook and YouTube, like those are just additives. But the work, when the cameras are off, man, the work is continuous at all times. It has to be for me.
Yeah, I feel that, bro. I feel that 100%, man. So Michael was making a bit of a joke the other day when they were doing it. He was talking about office work and the way that things are fucking pretty hard for him to work in an office setting after being a recovered addict. So what do you do like financially to keep yourself afloat? Does your platforms give you monetization, or do you like a tradie or an office guy? What do you do for yourself, man?
Yeah, so there's for me, no monetization across the platforms. Everything I do, if I'm being honest, some of the things I do with it cost me money, but I don't, it's not about that. It's about the message. So I'm 100% okay with that. As far as, I was a supervisor at a place called Magna. Well, I probably shouldn't say their name, but I was a supervisor at an automotive place, and it was a really toxic environment. It was taking a real big toll on my mental health, and I had to make some hard choices, So now I'm doing some CDL training, and I'm almost at the end of that. Looking forward to, that new journey. But when I do that, I believe it's going to create me another opportunity because, if we refer back to the platforms, right? We got people all over the US. So I'll be traveling, and one of my goals is to start showing more unity through that people that I've met off TikTok, Facebook, hey, I'm going to be in this town. If you're in this town and you want to go to a meeting or have a lunch, let's show that it's just more than the power of the internet, that we meet in real life and we can, create real lasting relationships to be successful going forward. So yeah, CDL is the next step.
Yeah. That's mad. That's the same for me in Australia as well, man. It's split up into 5 or 6 states, and they're all pretty big. You know what I mean? It's a good couple of hours plane trip in between. And some of the people that I've met that have come over to Perth, I haven't actually had the chance to go out anywhere else yet. Myself being a dad with two young kids and working and that, but everybody that's come has made a big effort to come and meet me, and I've always put in a lot of effort to try and meet some people, and hopefully this year is that's going to change for me as well, man. Hopefully I can do a bit of traveling and meet some people. But everyone that I have met in the podcast scene are just exactly like you say. Everyone's just on that same boat to just put that unity in and make the work happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a firm believer of together we rise, divided we fall. Um,
Yeah, man.
Firmly believe it. So I'm all about it.
Fuck yeah, bro. This is going to be a good podcast. I can feel it already. I love talking to people as soon as it starts flowing and you get that comfortability going, man. So let's get some of these questions kicking off, man. So the city that you live in, being like a recovered addict and stuff, is there still quite a few problems and that around you that you see? Like, are you still living around quite a few addicts and stuff when you're going out on the streets and that?
Well, so where I'm at now is a fraction of where I used to be. Columbus, Ohio is, there's millions upon millions in Columbus. I believe it's like almost 2 million people, if I'm not mistaken. It's a pretty big metropolitan city. For me, idle hands are the devil's playground. So every time that I would start to build some success in those areas, I'd want to see what Johnny was doing, right? Next thing you know, I'm in a couple places that I have no business being in. But for this area that I'm in, yeah, it's still here. It's everywhere, unfortunately. There's so many different substances now. Everybody's got their own flavor, so to speak, right? So you see those things, and as a recovering addict, it's easy to identify them. So yeah, they're here, but there's a lot of recovery also here. That's why it works for me. For such a small town, there's a lot going on in the recovery communities, a lot of sober houses that I connect with. I try to help the guys, the newcomers. We've been able to do a couple different sobriety rides. We do those late September. It's been 2 years running now. This will be the third year coming up. And, we just show unity through gatherings. We got a beautiful area. It's called Hocking Hills. It's just beautiful mountain terrains that, is just breathtaking. We go for 3, 4 hour rides, come back, have a meeting and, eat some food. That's how we combat those things. We try to attract rather than promote. It's working, but there's more work to be done. More work to be done for sure.
That's cool as, man. That's cool as fuck. I like that. You try to attract people in rather than sort of promoting it to be something that people can come and do. So they come when they're ready, sort of thing. Eh?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that there's a little bit of benefit in putting yourself out there, and that's why I've started the Rise and Recover Now thing. But the traditional, I'm a AA guy. That's just for me personally. That's what works for Cliff. Even though I've done many different substances, it all started with alcohol. But we're in a day and age where, the field of addiction treatment is evolving. And I think for, good, rightfully so. Not everything works for the next individual. How I got sober may not work for the next guy. And I'm okay with that. I don't care how you recover. Just do it. Just do it, please. You deserve it.
Fucking oath, man. So when did like drinking and the substances first become more than just fun for you, man?
When I was growing up, alcohol was a thing. It started back with my mom and dad, my biological parents. They didn't work out. And then even with the dad that I call dad, his name's Dan. When they got together, they met in a bar. He met my mom, and it just kind of went from there. And their relationship started with those things, right? There was some better years within all of that, but the drinking was acceptable, right? I can remember getting pulled over for a DUI, and I would go into the jail, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, yeah, no, don't even dress him out. His bond's already paid," because it was acceptable, right? It was just something
Yeah,
that
right.
happened. So the real first red flag for me that it was becoming mandatory for myself instead of a choice was when I lost my first wife. She tried, man. I got hurt on the job. I started on the opiates, Percocets, and, I didn't see it as a problem. All the traditional things, right? I'm paying my bills, the family's taken care of, the house, the cars, all those things that are great from the outside, but on the inside, I was losing it. And she would try to bring me pamphlets home of like recovery places, detoxes, things of that nature. And I couldn't stop. Only thing that stopped me that time was prison. She left, I went to prison, and life became very different at that point. And at that point, I knew that I had a problem, but I still wasn't ready to take care of it, even though with all the loss and the prison time, like it wasn't, I didn't do nothing. I really didn't, unfortunately.
I can relate to that, bro. I had a very similar point, not with the family and stuff, but my mum and dad and my brother and a lot of friends that I went to school with and stuff, they really did try to help me, you know what I mean? And I just didn't want to hear it, bro. I was too deep in my toxicity for myself, and it sort of led me into a person and becoming someone that now I can look back on and sort of kick myself for, but I've learned to forgive myself because I didn't know any better at the time, But so what was the substance that was the biggest one for you, man? Like you just mentioned Percocet, and I know America's pretty big with the medication and stuff like that. Like, is there other stuff as well that was floating around, or was that the first introduction for you?
Well, that wasn't my first introduction, but that's the one I give the most respect to because
Okay.
that's the one that really jump started my addiction, right? That was the first one that I would consider unmanageable. Even though I had a couple DUIs through alcohol, I may have smoked a little weed during those times. All of those I could put off, right? If something started happening, I'd be like, nope, I'm good and stop. However, when it came to the opiates, man, like I say, I got hurt on the job. And at that point in time, the doctors were giving them out like crazy, and but it went into everything else. When I got hooked on opiates, Percocets, they were um, prescribed to me, and when they took them away from me after giving them to me for like 2 months for my hand, it was easy to buy them. I had money, and they were like $2 a piece. Oh, cool. $2? Yeah. Give me 10 of them. You know what I mean? But by the time it was all said and done, I was paying upwards of 35, $40 a piece for them. It was really bad. It was where if I didn't have 10 by noon, I didn't want to talk to you. Like that's how many I was doing. It was really bad. But I've done other things too. The methamphetamines, cocaine, crack, all those different things, all of the, I guess, mainstream ones, right? But I stayed away from like the acids and the hallucinogens. For some reason,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
scared of those.
yeah.
I don't know, but they're definitely here, which don't make no sense because I tell you what, you stay up for a week on some of those other ones, and you start hallucinating anyways, right? But that's the chaos. Oh no, that makes me do this, but I'm going to do this instead, and then same result. Madness.
Fucking brutal, eh? It's brutal. Like, and that. Thank you for being so honest in that. Like, this has been a big thing in Australia at the moment. So they say that here in Australia, we're sort of 10 years behind America and the United Kingdom, right? And they've only recently now just putting real hard restrictions on it, the doctors. So, like, we're starting to go in pretty heavy numbers and making up all these excuses of why they needed tramadol and they needed, oxys and they needed all this other stuff. And so now they've put them into a category here in Australia called a Schedule 8, which means they're like fucking high end, make you noddy and sleepy and shit like that. So it's crazy that they would just give them out to people so fucking freely and knowing that they can create such a problem, mate.
Yeah, and that was the thing too, right? And that fed the addiction, not only in the actual act of being able to obtain them, but in the sense of the mental part, right? It's okay. The doctors are giving them to me. They're safe. It's not a problem. But you find out you got a problem when the doctors stop giving them to you because they did the same thing here, right? It was Schedule 1, is what they
Okay.
call it. And once they started doing that, you go to a doctor and they'd be like, "No, man, you've been to 7 emergency rooms in the past 3 weeks." No, and purposely when I got sober, I red flagged myself. That's what they call red flag. I go in and tell the doctor, "Hey, listen, I have an issue. Don't want it." I
Yeah,
just
man.
went through knee surgery in December. And the first thing I told that doctor was, "Hey, I don't care how much it's going to hurt. I don't care how much you recommend them. I don't want them." And it has to be done because what I understand is that'll refuel my addiction, and I'm not willing to do that, man. It's a good thing you guys are 10 years behind because maybe you guys can use us for an example here in the US and be like, "Well, we see what that problem's going to be, so let's put some, let's be proactive instead of reactive." And I hope something works over there, man, because it's been hell over here.
It's at an all-time high over here, dude. Like when you go through the streets in the cities over here, man, there's fucking homeless people everywhere. There's medication wrappers and fucking dirty needles all over the streets. And like when I grew up, sort of 10, 15 years ago, when I was a teenager, when you were talking about the time where you hurt your hand, like around that time, It was really quite clean here in Australia, man. It wasn't really that bad, but I'm not sure what the issue is about it. Fuck, dude, it is at the worst it has ever been. I spoke to another guy who does some street interviews with people, and he travels around, and he reckons that the cities are just they're just at a dump state, man. Like people are just fucking, they're homeless and they're literally drinking themselves to sleep in a doorway or eating whatever they can to just fucking nod off so they're not having to deal with their problems. And it's pretty rampant, man. It's really, really bad, eh? So you mentioned before about going to prison, Cliff. And I think for us in Australia, we see a lot of movies and stuff like that, and people have, I spoke to Michael about this too with the Canada thing. We have this idea that American prisons are sort of like the orange jumpsuits and like guys getting shanked in the yard and stuff. Is that what it's actually like, man? Or is it different in every state wherever you go? Like, can you tell us about that?
Well, yeah, each state differentiates, right? Depending on their DOC, Department of Correction.
Hmm.
Well, they're still, down in Mississippi, they still got chain gangs. Like those are real things.
Damn.
Guys out on the side of the road and working. But if you come to the US, don't go to California or Texas and go to prison. Absolute hell. Probably some of the most violent prisons in the US, particularly here in Ohio. I can only speak for Ohio, but they have different levels. 1 through 5, that determines your security level. If you're a 1, you can, go work outside the fence. If you're a level 5, enjoy your cell, right? For me, I was always a level 2. Uh, Level 2 is, just open dorms, 144 guys on, one side of the dorm, the other side, another 144, 88 per unit.
Shit, that's a lot of
And
people, bro.
oh yeah, there was 2,600 people on the camp I was at, the last one. But honestly, man, if you go in there and mind your business, you don't have an issue. I've done 2 different prison stints, and I've been in one fight within the two. Just because I went in there and I minded my own business. I didn't get into the politics. It's like anything else, man. Prison is like the streets without women. We'll just go with, well, it depends on what you're into, but you
Yeah.
know, for me, without women, right? And just go in there and you be respectable and you hold yourself in a decent manner and you're going to be okay. But once you start getting into level 3s and 4s, you run into the gangs more and more in those higher securities because you kind of have to for survival. All those things you see in the movies, with the shanks and all those different things, like those are realities for a lot of prisons. And blessed that I never had to experience it. I've seen some pretty gruesome things even at level 2s, but none of which have I've been a part of or has happened to me by the grace of God.
Yeah, bro. When I went to jail here in Australia, they have 3 stages here. So they've got minimum, medium, and maximum. And if you get, depending on what your charges rate in court, and I'm sure you can understand this, you probably understand exactly what I'm saying. So, like, if you're doing high end crimes, you're going to go straight to the max. Like, there's no fucking around, and they're not really mixing people together. But when I was in there wasn't enough beds in the medium, so they were just sending people to the max, bro. And they have 2 out cells, so there's probably about 30 to 40 people in each unit in like the wings, right? But when I was in there for a certain point, the state didn't have enough beds, so they were putting people on mattresses in the floors, and the numbers were jumping from like 40 people to like 70 to 75, and that's when things did get a bit heated. And I didn't really see anything too like heavy in there apart from some fights and like a few other little things. Like I wasn't involved in any riots or any crazy shit like that, but you see people living on top of each other, man, and it just gets heated in certain situations.
Yeah, absolutely. In Columbus, they got a place it's called the Workhouse, and it's just like that, right? 30, 40 guys, not enough bunks. Out of all of my jail time, with it all combined, if you count my prison time, my city time, I'm right under 7 years that I've been incarcerated. And the worst place that I've ever been is that workhouse. The cops, if you get into a fight, you're on your own, man. They'll come and look at you in the door. It's a really violent place. It's eat or be eaten. I've seen guys come in there and not never eat no food, because they don't know how to stand up for themselves, and it's really unfortunate. But I got to do my time. You better figure out how to do yours. So, but yeah, sleeping under picnic tables, under the TV, under the phones, like it's just like it's really inhumane. It's a big motivator for why I stay sober because I just don't want to go back to those things, man. I really don't.
Fuck yeah, man. Congratulations on being better for yourself, dude. You know, for pushing through and having that mentality to not actually want to live like that, because I know that a lot of people get broken in their head and they just don't try to be any better, do they? They just continuously go back and get stuck in that cycle all the time.
Yeah, I mean it's mandatory. I have to keep the right mindset or I'm destined to fail.
All right, good. That was a good chat, man. Good information for some people as well, and it gives people some insight to not go down that road any further. You know, maybe some people in America as well. I'm sure that the people on Sobriety Grind will definitely be watching this on YouTube, and I'll try my best to see if I can do the editing and get it all up so people can actually hear your full story, man. Because yeah, when Michael said this guy's got a story, he wasn't wrong. So, did you run into any problems, sort of like on the AA side of things? Was there long waiting lists? Did you have to like sort of put your name forward before anyone else, or is that sort of a smooth transition system to get into that?
You started echoing again really bad. I don't know if it's we're getting a bad connection. I'm sorry. I couldn't understand anything there.
That's all right. I'll ask the question again. Is that better?
Yeah, that was a little bit better.
Yeah. All right. So no, I was just saying, on the rehab side of things, do you find that it's easier to get into rehab when you're over there, or is it hard to get in there?
Well, I mean, the epidemic here is so bad. The rehabs and the detox centers, they're popping up left and right. It's becoming easier. It's what I would call more mainstream now, right? Because it's a known issue. It's a progressive disease, right? But with progressive disease also comes progressive treatment. So, now compared to, 10 years ago, it's way easier now, because people were actually trying to do something here, and it's really amazing to watch because it's saving a lot of people in the process. I know back when I started trying to get sober, and I'm not going to blame anybody but myself for not being able to do that during that time. If it would have been as easy as it is now, maybe things would be different, right? Maybe. But, all I can do is continue to fight my fight, lead by example, and lead people to these places. I work with a handful here in Ohio. I know a lot of people all over the state. I've had success in placing people in many different detoxes, different treatments, different sober homes, and some of those people are thriving right now. Some are, but all we can do is lead the horse to water. We can't make them drink it. But yeah, if you want help, at least in Ohio, it's definitely way easier than it was 10, 15 years ago. And I love seeing it. I love seeing it because I understand the difference that can make in a certain moment. It can be a life defining moment. And it's just a good thing to watch.
Yeah, man, it gives me a smile as well. You know, when you see guys that have the programs here where you can be released from prison straight into rehab. And I think that's a massive thing for guys too, as well. You know, some guys still they use in jail, they don't stop, and the fact that they can get out and go into rehab and still have that controlled environment where they're not just free to roam and do whatever they want. I think some of the stages that they go through is good, man. It's a good help, and that change is really needed because the rehabs were never really that big over here 10 years ago either, man. So how did you rebuild trust with yourself, Cliff? Was that a hard thing to do?
I mean, that was probably the hardest trust to rebuild in my opinion. I don't really struggle with it now, but at
Hmm.
first, it was a lot of second guessing, but the way I combated that was outside, right? Outside of myself, my trusted sources, my meetings, the reading. Sometimes you can get an answer out of the same passage for different problems. I'm a traditional overthinker. If I'm being honest about it, right? And that led to my trust issue, right? Always second guessing, like, are you doing this right? I think here over the past 3.5 years, though, trusting myself has been a whole lot easier because it just comes a point where it's like, hey, man, I'm done. I'm absolutely just done. Like I say, I just celebrated the 18 months, but the last 3.5 years have been an absolute miracle. They've been amazing. And that's just because I've been trusting myself. I've been trusting myself that I'm going to do the next right thing. But rebuilding it in the start, it took some time, and I had to do that in a controlled environment. If I'm being honest about it, I had to maximize my I had to maximize my time within those structures to be successful once I was released. And I learned that not my first time go round, but it took a while. And this last time, it was just me finally getting out of my own way in the sense of, I used to hear things, hey, I'll take this, but I don't need that. I don't need that, right? I'm just going to pick and choose what I need. But now I trust what is given to me. I apply it and it builds my trust within myself. Now, it doesn't matter, man. I go anywhere. I don't care. I used to put restrictions on myself, like, oh, I won't go back here. I won't talk to that person. And I'm not saying I go hang out in the bar either, right?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Um, if situations present themselves, I am 1000% confident that I'm going to deal with it in the manner that allows me to stay on the path that is being successful for me, for myself and my family, because they deserve it too as well.
It was a really, really, really good answer, man. And so, off the back of that, if there's anyone struggling at the moment who keeps slipping, sort of thing, what advice would you give them about getting up on back on the horse and how important it is?
The importance is paramount, man. I referenced that almost 3 years that I had earlier. I fell 9 days short. And when I fell that 9 days short, like I beat on myself over it, right? It's like, man, I
Yeah, right.
lost all this time. But what I now understand today is that the only thing that I lost was the consecutive time. And like, yes, that sucks, right? To not be able to say, oh, I'm 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it would have been by now. If you're struggling, just keep fighting, right? Because that's what I did, right? And even though I've had to restart my time on different occasions, I still take all that knowledge and all those strategies with me, right? And really, when I slip, I am my own worst enemy, right? Because, all the emotions come in, maybe some outside things as far as wife, kids, job, whatever, there may be some consequences there. But at the end of the day, if you slip and you realize it, there's power in that, right? Because you're still here. I'm still here to have another chance to get this right. And not everybody gets that chance. Here in America, man, they are putting fentanyl in everything. I had a friend that smoked weed. That's all he did. He got laced with fentanyl and he is no longer here, right? So I look at those instances. I look at my buddy Mike that passed away when I was young. This kid, tennis star, straight A student all through school, never got in trouble, drank one 40 ounce of natural ice and one Xanax and never woke up.
Holy
You know what
shit,
I
dude.
mean?
Yeah,
And I
man.
look at those things like there's a reason that I'm here. If you're struggling and you've slipped and you're still here, there is a reason that you are here. You are worth the life that you've been given. You are worth the air that you're breathing. And it is possible, right? If we're still breathing, it is still possible to get this right. And it's just a slip. It's just a slip. Get back up, stand up, figure out what went wrong, keep using what worked, and continue building. And that's what it's all about, is continuous growth. And if you're struggling, you can do it, right? You can definitely do it. You just got to believe in yourself, because I guarantee there's somebody outside of you that believes in you, that believes you can do it.
It was beautiful, bro. That was fucking beautiful, man. Thank you so much for saying that on my podcast, eh? Like, there's been some good answers to some good questions last year, and you're one of the first people from 2026. And that was a belter of an answer, dude. That was fucking solid. Just if I can give my condolences to you for your friend that you did lose. Uh, definitely, definitely not a good thing. I've experienced something very similar with myself, and unfortunately, we saw a friend of mine from a long time ago's sister go down a very, very dark path herself when she lost her brother, and it was a pretty similar thing, man. He had an ecstasy tablet, and he got involved with some dudes that we were knocking around with, and we used to sort of like rob people and fuck around, man. And one day he was with another group of my mates, and they were out, and they said, "Oh, we're going to rob these guys for their mobile phones and that." And one of the guys in the group that they robbed, there was like a little stake of wood or like a bit of metal that was holding a tree up. And this guy was so scared that he pulled the stake out from the tree and hit my friend in the head with it, bro, and killed him. And he didn't even see his fucking 18th birthday, dude. You know what I mean? So that really rocked us as kids. And that's the power of these conversations that we have, if people can hear these stories that we're sharing, they might be able to draw strength from that and apply it to their own life, or share it with their little brother or sister or their little nephew or something who's fucking around on the streets, and they might actually pull themselves out and stop.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we haven't talked much, man, but this recovery journey is personal for me.
Mm.
My fight is personal. Helping others through this fight is personal. I've lost my mom, my dad, and my sister all to this disease of addiction. My sister was 19 years old. There's nothing that I can do to get her back. There's no reason that you can tell me that she's gone that I'll accept. Um,
Yep.
but it has taken everything from me. It removed me from my children. It removed me from a good marriage at that time. I've lost business, I've lost myself in the process. But my fight is personal because I want to get it right for myself. I want to get it right for my family. And I want to help those that are suffering, but not only those that are suffering, but the family members affected in the matter as well, right? Because what we don't realize as addicts is, we think I'm just hurting myself. No, we are not. We are hurting everybody that we come into contact with. Our family members suffer just as much. And then when we get sober, it's called parallel recovery, right? They have to heal at the same time as we recover. And it just, I have absolutely no other purpose than to try to help, because it has taken so much from me. I miss my mom, dad, and sister more than I could ever geez, sorry, more than I could
Man.
ever truly express. My sister was a beautiful soul. She didn't even have a chance to live life. And that's what addiction is doing. It's ripping people away that don't even know what they're doing. People that haven't even had a chance at life. It doesn't matter whether you're white, black, purple, brown, Australian, American, Canadian. The disease of addiction does not discriminate, and it will take you out. It will take me out. And I just absolutely will not be quiet, because if I'm quiet about it, I negate a blessing that could be going to somebody else. And that's not fair. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to their family. And I absolutely will not do it. That's why you said, oh, you're up. Yeah, absolutely, I'm up, because I made a commitment. I keep my word today. And who might need to hear this just may hear it.
Fuck yeah, man. Thank you so much. I think there's going to be a lot of people, and you can see the expression on my face, man. You've given me goosebumps on my arms. My hairs are standing up right now. There's some people in Australia that really fucking needed to hear that, brother. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that I asked you to come on, I asked you not to hold back, and I asked you to fucking lay that shit on the table, man. There's going to be some people that are going to hear this. They're going to have tears in their eyes, and it's going to get them emotional. And that's exactly what we need. Michael refers to them as warriors, and you are definitely a fucking warrior, Cliff. And I think we need people like you leading the army, man. You're one of the generals in the army at the front, even the flag, letting motherfuckers know this is not what you are better than this, and you can change, man. So can you give your page a shout out on TikTok so the people that are hearing this, they can get more help? Because your poems, your stories that you tell in your car, and the way that you put that out, I think we need to give a shout out to your page, the Rise and Recover Now. So how do people find you, man?
So my handle is Rise and Recover Now. I'm on TikTok, Facebook, as well as YouTube. But I pretty much post everything across all platforms. Some have different things on them. If you can't find me under the Rise and Recover Now handle, Cliff Duff, I'm out there. Please reach out if you. It doesn't matter. I check my phone religiously, man. Like I'll be up answering text in the middle of the night. You'd be surprised how many people reach out. Hey, man, I don't know what to do. And it's like, okay, let's get you through it. I'm always up for help, man. Guys, reach out, follow, watch the videos. If you got any questions, please, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. And if I can't give you a good answer that's concrete, I'm going to work with my network to find you that. Because you deserve the life that you want. You do. Rise and recover now. Let's go.
For the people who are following me in Australia, when I release the social media videos from this conversation, I'll tag you in it. And when you see the hashtags and all the rest of it, you'll be able to see Cliff's name. You'll be able to click on his link and it will link you straight to the page. I'll make sure that you get as many social clips as you can for your page and that as well. And with the strength that you're speaking with now, man, do you have like a long-term goal for yourself in 5 years? Where do you see the Rise and Recover Now going in about 5 years' time?
I was on a podcast when I first started this, and he asked me the same question.
Yep.
My goal for Rise and Recover Now is that it reaches the right people that need to hear it. It's that simple.
Hmm.
Where it
Hmm.
goes from there, that's none of my business. Whether it stays right where it is or it blossoms into this, mega help source. I'm okay with either because the goal is to just help, right? Ultimately, I would love to be able to create this into something much bigger, to be able to help more. But all we can do is help one addict at a time, make one video at a time, take one step at a time, and hopefully grow this into something that'll be everlasting for generations to come. That's my goal.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for your time today. We're gonna close the podcast off there because I think that's a nice way to end it. We'll end it with a shout out for yourself. And I just want to give from an addict on the other side of the world that's recovered to yourself. I want to give you a shout out, brother, and give you a thank you for your time and thank you for everything you do for our community here, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope everybody there in Australia gets something from this. And I hope if you never need me, I'm always here for you, man. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate you as well.
That's all right, man. I definitely think that me and you'll be speaking a lot more online after this chat. We sort of got to know each other a little bit better today as well, didn't we?
Absolutely. I'm always available.
All right, brother. Well, definitely for everybody that is listening, make sure you get around Cliff Duff, Rise and Recover Now on Facebook and TikTok. And if you do need the great man, send him a message and I'm sure he'll get back to you. But for everybody else out there, stay safe, stay sober, and have a beautiful day. Thank you very much.